Hey everybody, Victory Indian family. I wanted to make this video this morning, show you how to use the Polaris parts fiche. What it does for you, it shows you the different products, part numbers, where they're used, how the parts actually fit together. And I see a lot of people in the forums and Facebook, social media, asking questions that they can solve very easily themselves because the information they're getting on those places, the social medias, is so far from being accurate. It's ridiculous. I know Rylan from the Vic Shop, he's made a bunch of videos that can help you guys out. You got to check out his website, vicshop.com. But he's got some videos and he kind of says the same thing. So much information out there is so wrong, and people are trying to fix stuff and figure stuff out based off of that. So I want to show you real quick here how to do this yourself. So you're going to come to the browsepolaris.com website here. Here's the link. You can type that in, but you'll get this website here. So what you want to do is the product line, and then they have all the Polaris stuff. So you want to go down to either the Victory or the Indian. So we'll just pick the Victory, okay? And then what year is your bike? We're just going to pick 2014. And then what model? So do you have a boardwalk, cross country, jackpot, whatever you have. So we're just going to pick a cross country. Okay, so now here's all the parts. Okay, now the hard thing, or the confusing thing, can be where do I find these parts? A lot of times, you may say body and trunk, and what you're looking for is, back there on the body, but you can't find it. So you have to just start clicking around. And each one of the makes and models, this will be different. So if it worked, say you have two bikes. If you worked on a hammer and you were like, oh, the brakes were in this section, but now you come to a Vision and you're like, I can't find that part. You have to keep looking. So we're just going to pick something that's, I don't know, fairly simple. I'm just doing this off the top of my head, but something everybody looks at. So let's just say the brakes. So this is the brakes, the brake line, and it's the front if you have ABS. If you don't have ABS, it's this one. If you have rear ABS or rear brakes with no ABS, there you go. So we're just going to click the front. So there's a schematic, and all a schematic is it's a diagram, a drawing of how the parts all fit together. It's a representation of how everything goes together. There's certain symbols on different schematics that are constant across the board. So in this example, this is the front of the bike, okay? When you look for a part, you don't say really the left or the right, because if you're standing in the front of the bike, the left is, on one side, but if you're sitting on the bike, the left is on the other side. So you never want to do that. I see people doing that all the time. I ordered the right side, and they sent me the left. Well, chances are you screwed it up, and you didn't do it right. So that's why they put the front, okay? So whenever you do parts, it's always from the rider position. So when you're sitting on the bike, left, right, okay? That's how you order parts. So this schematic is on looks like the brake line, because I believe that's what we picked. So the one thing you want to do is you want to take this edge right here, and see how the cursor changes? You want to click, hold down, left click, hold down, and drag this over. Okay? So now you can kind of see a little bit better. So let's say we're looking for this brake line, the top brake line, number 3. So you would go over here, and in the numbers here, you would find number 3. So number 3, this is the part number, the Polaris part number. It's called a hose brake lever. Now, that's sort of weird. You say, well, what's that got to do with a brake lever? Some of this stuff really, to the common person, makes absolutely no sense, okay? But that's why I'm showing you how to figure this out. So the hose for the brake lever, all that's saying is this hose goes up here to your brake lever, okay? If it was the hose going, these are the calipers, the front calipers. If it was the hose for the caliper, it would say hose, brake, caliper, right hand, and left hand. Okay? So that's what the number means. The number here corresponds with the number here, so you can find your part number. Now, if you keep going over, the quantity column would be how many of those are on the bike in this particular application, okay? So you're going to see that you have one hose. You only need to buy one. When you look up here and you see banjo bolt right here, number 2. So this bolt right here is what bolts the brake line onto the master cylinder, your brake lever master cylinder. So you have a bolt, and in this application, there would be 4 of them. So if you look, you're going to see a number 2 here. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? So all those, that tells you that caliper bolt, banjo bolt right here is the same one that's used up here. Okay? Same things for these copper sealing washers, the gaskets, if you want to say. Number 1. So that's the copper sealing washer. There's 11 of them. So if you go through here, you're going to count up 11 of those. Now, I'll show you on a different diagram something a little bit, shows it a little bit better. But the way this works is it shows you how all these parts go together. So if you take it apart, and most people do, they take it apart, have all the parts on the floor, and then have no idea how it goes back together. You can come here and look. You can see the banjo bolt goes up through the washers. Now this one's a little bit harder to see. One washer would be under the line, and one washer would be on top of the line, and the bolt goes through it. That's why I'm going to show you a different one. Down here, you can kind of see that a little bit better. If this is too small for you, you can go up here and click, all these different things. Hide the list, gets rid of all this. Zoom in, zoom out. If you want to print it to go out in the garage, everything's up there. So if you wanted to say, let's make this 50%, 75%, full size, there you go. And then you have your sliders to slide the picture around where you want to go. So when you look at this, you can see the bolt goes through a washer, then through the brake line to another washer. Okay? That also shows you that this will bolt on to this. So again, I'll show you a different picture, but this is a real simple one because there's not a lot of parts. So we can make it back down to smaller, whatever size. Again, use your slider bars to scroll around. Now the next thing is the usage. So that's not really something you would probably use a whole lot, but if you look, so let's just take that banjo bolt. You click usage, it'll bring up a different screen, and this is what that banjo bolt is used on. So it's got all kind of different things. There's sportsman four-wheelers, scramblers. Now this list is, from what I found, Polaris is not very good. That bolt is used on pretty much every Victory, that banjo bolt. They're not even listed here, okay? So this is not very accurate. I'm sure it is on these things, but it's not very accurate to what everything is included, okay? So the one thing you guys always do is I see the comments, and we get them all the time, about fork seals. You're doing your fork seals, and does this washer go here, or does the seal go here? So let's just take a look at that. Let's go down, and you're going to want to look for forks, okay? So you're going to start looking engine EF forks, okay? And you're going to say, I can't find it. That's a good example of how this stuff is done. It's actually the suspension, okay? So if you go down and you find suspension right here, front forks, okay? So just because you can't find what you're looking for, you may not be calling it the right thing. Okay? So here's a front fork schematic. So let's blow this up so you can see it. So now, if you're saying, well, how does all these parts fit together? I don't know how they go together. Here's a good example. So the internal part of the fork here, this is the lower seals, bushings, washers, all that. It shows you. So the bottom part of the fork, okay, and you're going to have a bolt. There's your bolt that you have to take out that we show in the video. The bolt, that's a washer. So the bolt goes through the washer and up through here. Then you have the tube. So you have bushings, seal, washer, clip, more seals, bushings, washers. That's the order this stuff goes in. Now, it's not going to show you necessarily, does it go this side or upside down, or, how does that seal fit in there? If you put the seal in backwards or upside down, it's going to leak. But this shows you the steps of how all these parts fit together. Then there's your dampening rod, your tube. That goes up through the upper fork, and the upper fork has a spring, some bushings, spring, and again, from what I showed you, 17 is the exact same part. So it doesn't matter what spring goes in there. You can put this spring up here. It's the exact same spring. So it doesn't matter where you put them. The same with the bushing. The bushings are the exact same bushings. So when you're putting stuff together, this bushing can go up here. It's the same thing. So that's the order. You put the spring in, and that's what this line means. You go up here, and the spring goes in, the bushing, the spring, the bushing, and then here you have, if that's a nut, I can't remember what that is. So let's just look, 18. You're going to take your cursor, widen that out. You're going to go down to 18, and it's a nut. So you say, okay, and you know what? You dropped all your parts on the floor. The dog came in, kicked them around. Your kid came in, kicked them around. You're like, shit, I don't know if I got enough parts. Well, the nut, you only need one. So if you find one, you're good to go. So the nut screws on to the top of the dampener rod, and then you have, I believe that's an O-ring. It's been so long since I did this stuff. Yeah, so that's an O-ring seal. You come down, the O-ring goes in, and then the fork tube cap screws on. So that's how all this stuff goes together. So if you're looking, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're working on your bike, and you're trying to figure out what's going on, this is how you do it. Okay, this is how mechanics do it. This is how everybody does it. Same thing, it shows you bolts. Here's a bearing. Here's the lock nut. Shows you how stuff goes. The bolts for this go up underneath. They don't come down. These bolts go into the side. Okay, so that's really how this stuff works. So again, if you drop your parts on the floor, you can come back and take this and say, okay, here's what I need. I need 2 of those, whatever. And the whole thing is that way. If you need electrical, I don't know what I clicked there, turn signals. So there's your turn signals from the front on a cross-country fairing. Your turn signal goes into there, and the bolt goes through this way. Okay, this bolt goes through this way. So that's all it is. So hopefully this helps you guys out. It will definitely, you got to play around a little bit and kind of, stare at some stuff and see, how does all this stuff go. Here's a dash, the instrument cluster. You'd have a bolt, a washer, probably a rubber bushing, so you can see how stuff goes. So hopefully this helps you out, gets you a good direction on what you need to do when you're working on your bike. So ride safe, and any parts you need, give us a call at witchdoctors.com. Check us out. We're the world's biggest Victory and Indian parts, aftermarket and OEM parts. So hope that helps. Thanks for watching.